mean, 5:32. What do you think?
5:32 sounds good to me.
That's when I'll
Give it
start.
a couple minutes. Yeah, let people trickle in.
How many people are there?
We've got 11. Oh, 10.
Maybe you can let them in now, and then I'll start in 60 seconds.
Looks like everyone's starting to join now.
Just going to get started in another minute, just waiting for people to sign on. Welcome, welcome. Okay. So we're going to get started. It is 5:32. Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Robin Rubin. I'm an instructor in the Phyllis and Harvey Sandler School of Social Work at Florida Atlantic University, and I'm also the founder of the Robin Rubin Center for Happiness and Life Enhancement. Before we get started, I wanted to briefly introduce the Robin Rubin Center for Happiness and for those who may be joining us for the first time. So this center is actually housed in the Sandler School of Social Work, which is within the College of Social Work and Criminal Justice here at Florida Atlantic University. The center offers weekly wellness programming free of charge for students, faculty, staff, friends, and family. Everybody's welcomed and encouraged to participate and attend all of our events, including our meditations every Friday at noon on Zoom, which will start on September the 6th. We have yoga on the second and fourth Monday of each month, and we also have special monthly workshops like this one. It's never been more important to nurture our physical, our mental, and our emotional and spiritual wellness. We are all firm believers that it starts with giving yourself permission to show up and step forward. So for any first-time people in the audience today, welcome. Congratulations for showing up for yourself today. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Maria Benzo. Dr. Maria Benzo is an international medical doctor specializing in physical medicine and rehabilitation with a master's degree in positive psychology and a certification as a professional coach by the International Coaching Federation. Currently, she is an assistant professor of medicine and research associate at the Mayo Clinic, focusing on behavioral research and health and wellness coaching for medical patients. Her expertise spans medicine, positive psychology, mindfulness, motivational interviewing, and acceptance and commitment therapy, enabling her to design integral coaching interventions that enhance psychological flexibility and overall well-being. So, Maria, thank you so much for being here, and please take it away.
Thank you so much, Robin, for that introduction, and thank you for the chance to be here with everyone here. I am going to share my screen and we'll see how this works this time. All right. So I believe, am I showing the correct screen?
Perfect.
All right. So again, I'm going to ask everyone that feels comfortable to, this will be a workshop. So if I'm going to ask you to actually do a little bit of work, and if you want to turn on your cameras and participate as much as you can, that would be lovely. So again, I'm Dr. Maria Benzo. Like Robin said, I am a physician, positive psychologist, and professional certified coach, and I'm going to kind of use all of my expertise here to bring to you today a workshop to find your personal philosophy. So it is a self-discovery journey. And we'll start off with a quote by the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu: "He who knows others is wise. He who knows himself is enlightened." So today we aim to be enlightened and really go deeper in ourselves and in introspection. So let me go here, see how I'm turning the slides. Okay. So again, this is a space for a workshop. So I am going to ask you guys to show up with a little bit of willingness to really work and participate. So I am a bit curious if you want to unmute your mic or even put in the chat, like what brings you here when you read, that this was an offering, discovering your personal philosophy, what called out to you? Just feel free to share.
Hello. My camera's off because I'm driving and you're in my Apple CarPlay. But my name is Lauren Gutierrez, and I took Professor Rubin a few years ago in my part of my degree for my MSW. And I feel like when I came into the degree, I had like a very clear why. And I think as I've evolved and as my career and studies have evolved, I've explored so many different things, and I feel like I'm in a chapter of like wanting to come back to my why. So when I saw this pop up, it really called out to me to spend some time on this call.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm here seeing in the chat some self-discovery, curiosity about the topic, which usually means I need to listen. Than people that can't actually be on the screen because it wouldn't be appropriate. And I usually look for resources for guidance, and this sounds something that looking within my own personal guidance. Perfect. All right. Anybody else that just wants to kind of speak up to why this is something that called to you?
Well, I'll kind of share. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity and awesome resource. I think a lot of times when we think of sense of self, it's totally an evolving process. It's complex. We're humans. We're complex beings. So I think when I integrate into practice, it's a parallel process. It's co-regulation. It's not a power differential. And I think this was an incredible opportunity to reground sense of self and introspection awareness, and that's part of what we do as healers. So that's for me.
Yeah, lovely. And I think you make a great point too, that we do need to do our own work to be healers for others, right? There is a self-discovery process. There is a self-awareness that needs to happen for us to be there for others. So let's go into our work today. So really, everybody already has a personal philosophy. So rest assured, it's there. We're just going to bring it into our awareness, okay? Our personal philosophy guides the decisions we make, the influences, the people we choose as friends, the love we choose, the purchases we make, the jobs we inhabit, where we live, how we feel about ourselves and what opportunities hold for ourselves. So here we're actually making a choice to actively define our philosophy and bring it to our awareness. And the reason we want to do this is because when we are able to clarify our guiding principles, then we have the power to live life in our own terms, rather than living it by following societal expectations. So nowadays we live in a very special time because there is a lot of noise in our environment. And by noise, I mean social norms, social media, anything on the screen that is taking our attention, social pressure, expectations, right? And sometimes all of this starts to shape a false identity that is not really our authentic selves, right? We start to live by other people's terms rather than by our own terms. But we can't really know if that is happening to us unless we do this self-discovery work. And another thing that I want to mention before we get started is that this is dynamic like we are. So we're not, a personal philosophy will likely have things that will prevail throughout our lives, but then there are things that will change. So it is very much dynamic, and it's something that we need to come back to and kind of refine and really audit, as years go by, if that continues to be true for us. So let's see here. It's revealed by the choices we make. It is a compass, right? Because if we know our personal philosophy, even when things get really hard, we know how to behave. We know how to go through those challenging times because we know what we stand for, our core beliefs and values. Like I said, this is a workshop, so I am going to make you guys work. And I hope that either you have pen and paper or great memory for the ones that are not able to be at a desk and write some stuff down. But we do have an agenda. And we will go through 4 exercises, roughly 5 to 10 minutes each exercise. And each exercise will kind of build on each other. So it will create some brainstorming and it will get us warmed up, okay? So it's okay if this is the first time you're kind of working through this kind of value clarification, knowing what your strengths are. That's okay, right? We all have a first time. If you're more evolved in kind of this type of self-discovery, it'll be perhaps much easier to you. And perhaps by the end of today's workshop, you'll have a more clear statement. So our objective is to come to the end of our hour together with some draft of your personal philosophy. All right, so let's go to our first exercise. I'm not sure if you guys recognize this, but some of you may. So the virtues in action, these are 24, if you will, virtues or core values that have been studied like cross-culturally. And they're not the only values there in the world. There are a lot of core values. And you might ask, what are core values, right? And core values are root beliefs that really shape our behavior, right? Core values give us, if you will, a way of being, a way of showing up. So for our first exercise today, I'm going to ask you guys to, if you have a piece of paper or a screen, somewhere you can kind of write down, we're going to create 2 columns. So if you have a piece of paper, just, write draw a vertical line through it. And on the left side, you'll have a very important column. And on your right side, you'll have an important column. And the idea is that as I read these core values, you'll just have a microsecond moment where you'll decide, does this value resonate with me? And if it does resonate with me, is it very important or just important? And if it doesn't resonate with me, then I'm just going to let it go. I'm actually not going to write it down anywhere. So by the end of this exercise, we would have 2 columns with some values written down on the very important and some on the important. And again, this is just an exercise to get us warmed up. And in a second that I'm going to make you guys a bit smaller so I can read. All right. Are we good? Can we go through this exercise? Perfect. So I'm just going to read through. You take a moment to yourself and see what calls to you. Creativity, being original, adaptive, clever, a problem solver. Curiosity, being interested, exploring new things, open to new ideas. Judgment, a critical thinker, thinks things through and open-minded. Love of learning, masters new skills, topics, systematically adds to knowledge. Perspective, wise, provides counsel, takes the big picture view. Bravery, shows valor, doesn't shrink from fear, speaks up for what's right. Perseverance, persistence, industrious, finish what one starts. Honesty, being authentic, trustworthy, sincere. Zest, having enthusiasm, being energetic, doesn't do things half-heartedly. Love, warm and genuine, values close relationships with friends and family. Kindness, generous, nurturing, caring, compassionate, altruistic. Social intelligence, aware of the motives and feelings of others, knows what makes others tick. Teamwork, team player, socially responsible and loyal. Fairness, just, doesn't let feeling biased decisions about others. Leadership, organizes group activities, encourages group to get things done. Forgiveness, merciful, accepts others' shortcomings and gives people second chances. Humility, modest, lets one accomplishment speak for themselves. Prudence, careful, cautious, doesn't take undue risk. Self-regulation, self-control, manages impulses and emotions. Appreciation for beauty and excellence, finding awe in beauty. Gratitude, thankful for the good, expresses thanks, feels blessed. Hope, optimistic and future-minded. Humor, playful, light-hearted, brings smiles to other people's faces. And spirituality, searches for meaning, feels a sense of connection to something bigger than self. All right. So we kind of went through that list quickly, right? Because there's a lot to do today. But I wonder if you discovered anything about yourself, and I'm happy to hear it out loud on, unmute your mics. Did you discover anything by just hearing out that list and putting it down in your columns?
I'll say something. It's Robin. So it's interesting because I never heard that the strengths described as core values, but when you put it that way and you said like what's very important and what's important, there were definitely things that are very important to me. And some of them like went on neither list because they're not important to me. And they're not really part of who I am. They're not very important and they're not even important. And I never thought of it that way, but it was an interesting way to think about it. And yeah, there were many that were very important to me and defined kind of who I am. So I
Yeah.
looked at it that way. Yeah.
I agree with you, Robin. I think that, sometimes we start to see that not everything is the same for us, right? Not all values, they're all good values, right? But they're not all showing up for me to the very core. Yeah. Did anybody else kind of discover something that, oh, I thought that was important for me, but wait a minute.
Something that I noticed is that when you would say a value, I would think if it's important for me or important for others. And so I find there's different values that I think are important that I have versus values that I I look for and seek out in others.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you if you care to elaborate. Are the values that you hold for yourself different from the values you seek in others?
One of them was bravery and the other one was judgment. Those are two that I really, when I thought about it for myself. Also for humor, those are things that I hold to myself, but I don't, if somebody isn't as brave as I am, or if somebody isn't as, has as strong judgment as I have, they're not any less of a person to me. It's just those are qualities that I really focus on in myself. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, because that is a good point, right? This is us stripping us down from any external force, right? This is us at our core, right? What do I feel that is more true to me on how I live my life on my terms? Anybody else want to share?
I can share. So for me, most of them were very important, and I realized the ones that I put as important are the ones I don't think that I can do every day.
Mm,
Like the ones that I'll fall short of, like zest, I can't give zest every day. And I don't
mm.
think I can provide fairness in every situation every day. So those fell on the like, I'll probably fall short.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that you said that, Danielle, because actually, that is, for an advanced workshop, we would talk definitely about that, because it's like my core strengths that really show up in my life, and which are the ones that I want to develop, or where do I see opportunity that I want to go into, right? And that is true for all of us. We can't be 100% for everything. So we do at some point in life kind of choose 3, 4, maybe 5 core values
Right.
really show up every day. Absolutely. Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to move us along because we have more work to do, okay? So for our next exercise, let me find the cursor here. All right, we are going to reflect on peak experiences. So we've already kind of warmed up our mind on what our core values might be. But also core values already show up in our lives. So I'm going to ask you to take a moment, and as I read the prompts, just jot down on your paper what comes up for you. So reflect on moments of joy. Reflect on the best day, the best moment of your life. What are the most meaningful moments? Perhaps it might be a wedding day, perhaps it might be a graduation, perhaps it might be the day that you decided to, I don't know, choose what career you were going to pursue, or when you meet your best friend. Just examine that moment where you felt most aligned with your true self. What qualities and values were you embodying during those times? What was it about you that day, that moment, that made it so special, that made you just filled with joy and fulfillment? See if you can write down a few words. Perhaps, what was the environment about? Who was there? Perhaps there was something that you were really proud of, or you were in the presence of something that was inspiring. But whatever it is, whatever comes to mind, write down a few words, or try to clarify what made it so great. I'll give you a few more seconds. And now I'm going to ask you just to take a deep breath, right? And we've just reflected in a really good time. Perhaps we identified some really good stuff, what made that special. But now we're going to transition a little bit. And we're going to reflect on a very challenging moment in our life. A moment where you felt least satisfied, a moment where there was a lot of challenge, a lot of suffering. What was missing at that moment? What was not there? What happened that made it such a tough moment for you? Perhaps there was a value that was not present. Perhaps you were angry about something, or you had strong feelings about something. But what was missing from that moment that was so challenging? Maybe just write down a few words. And now I'm going to ask you again to take a deep breath. Just inhale, fill your lungs, exhale, let it all out, perhaps with a sigh, because we just tapped into some difficult stuff. We recognize that we've had some tough times in our lives because we're humans. And now we're going to reflect on some important decisions that we've made. I mean, I'm sure that all of us at some point in life made some important decisions. Can we take a minute and analyze what values or beliefs were driving those choices? How did you make your choice? And maybe write down a few things that come up for you. And again, this may show how we change too. Perhaps at some point in life, we decided based on some values that they may hold true now or not. But let's just become aware that that important choice was made with an underlying value. And was it our value? Or was it an external imposed value? All right. So now we kind of went through, we kind of tapped into what might be our values. We tapped into how our values have shown up in our life, in our good times, in our bad times, in our important decisions. And now I am guessing that all of us have some people that inspire us, right? Perhaps a family member, perhaps a historical figure, a colleague, a teacher, a coach, a friend. Let's see if we can identify a few people, perhaps just write their names. And let's, beyond the fact that we might care for these people, what about them inspires us? What is it that we find, oh, this person, I'll speak to myself. I look up to my dad, for example. He's very passionate. I love passionate people. I like people that just have this fire in them and then could just fuel through things that they love, right? Or I'm very much inspired by some professors that I have that were, again, so masterful in their skill, and I just admired mastery. And then I also, for example, have friends that have this unconditional kindness to their demeanor, right? So there are people in my life beyond like famous people, right? That I might admire famous people. But there are people in my life that show me certain qualities that inspires me. So I'm just going to ask you to write down their names. Just put a little arrow, perhaps write down what about that person inspires you. And now that we've gone through all of this, right? We've gone through the values, the peak experiences, and the role models that inspire us. See if you can put it all together and start to circle words that resonate with you. So from everything that we've done so far, see if there are words or phrases or statements that really kind of speak to you. And this is actually the start of creating this personal statement. So as you guys are now perhaps more warmed up, the idea is for us to be able to articulate a personal philosophy. These random words need to start coming together. These phrases need to start formulating, right? Looking at my work, can I identify some key themes, some recurring themes, right? Are there things that are repeating? So I'm a researcher for Mayo Clinic, so I do a lot of this work with my patients, but I want you to be your own researcher right now. Look at the work you've done so far. What kind of comes up for you repeatedly? And the idea now is that we'll take a few minutes to see if you can string together these words to start to make them into a statement, because that's what a personal philosophy is, like having this statement that when you read it, when you say it out loud, it's your compass. It's your guiding principles. It might be one sentence, two sentences, three sentences, one, I don't know. It's personal. I'm going into the chat just to see what people have been commenting. I'm going to leave you guys a few more minutes. Just write down if you to see if you can get into a statement. And I'll leave a lot of time for us to kind of say it out loud, because that's when we actually know if it resonates with us. Like, it has to pass the test of being said. Yeah, I'm seeing here in the chat, big decisions like migrating to the US. I bet that had a lot of value behind it. I share that with you. Ambition, yeah. I love these. So as you guys, this will not be definite today, right? This takes a lot of work until you actually feel that you've got it. And I'll give you a little bit of background. Like, when I did my first personal philosophy, it was about 5 years ago, and I had no clue of, all of this, right? So, perhaps it was, for me, it was like an experience that I was, if you will, baptized into and then had to evolve. And initially I said, okay, I want to be happy, right? You want to be happy, be happy, don't worry, find things that you love, right? I was kind of within that. But then every time I kind of share that with others, I felt that I was like, oh, I think there's a little bit more, right? I think that's not it. I think that happiness is not the only, perhaps, value that drives my decisions. So I had to go through a lot of personal development until I was able to craft mine. And then now I can share it because I feel more confident about it, and confidence does evolve, right? We feel more confident as we do when we master something. And so my personal philosophy right now is be present. And for me, that means, trying to be aware of myself, trying to be aware of my surroundings, trying to be mindful of my actions, cultivate joy, because I realize that for me, it is very much important to cultivate joy, to take time to do that, and to stay connected with people that matter. So presence, joy, and connection were the three words that I kind of thread together to pull my personal philosophy. And again, this took time. So ideally, for us to get into a good personal philosophy, we need time to reflect. We need time to reflect on our values and to reduce this noise that is societal expectations, that is social media, that is social pressure. Whether we like it or not, this shapes a false identity, like we talked about before. And we start to behave in ways that really are not our authentic self, right? We start to be pushed around by being for everybody else's expectations. For example, we might endorse other people's behaviors that we actually don't agree with just to be part of something, right? So these are the things that we need to be, we need to have time to ourselves to be stripped from all of this noise and to really kind of be enlightened and know ourselves. Like, what do we stand for? And am I going to live my life on my own terms, right? This doesn't mean not living with other people. It just means knowing who you are. So when you know your personal philosophy, it's easier to set goals because you know your values. And if you align your values with your goals, you're more likely to stay motivated long term, right? And really, your values come from your daily habits. So if we know how we want to show up in this world, if we know our values, we will put in these habits so it becomes part of our daily life. Just like someone mentioned earlier today, like I think Danielle, you said that I can't be 100% of everything, right? But if we know our 3 or 4 core values and we put that into our habits and that shows up every day, then we show up being that, right? We stand up for that. And it requires self-awareness. So if we, as healers, right? We need to do our self-work. We need to know, have self-awareness of how am I right now? How are my values shaping my behaviors? How am I showing up? Because otherwise we can't really expect, right? That we can say what we preach, but we have to live it, right? We have to really be, that's where we are shown as authentic people. So this is a journey. This is dynamic. Be patient with yourself. Be compassionate with yourself. You might today have, a draft of your personal philosophy, and I would love to hear you kind of blur it out there because it's important to have, this kind of test. Like, I'm going to say it out loud. Does it sound silly? Does it sound true to me? Does it sound powerful? Right? So I'm going to open it up to the discussion here, the room. And if somebody is open to just saying a few words of what you've discovered today.
Dr. Benzo, I'm just going to interrupt you really quickly. Thank you so much for that. Before we jump into questions, everyone, please just take a moment to briefly complete our survey tonight. It's very short. Kayla's going to drop it in the chat. Your feedback helps us know what we're doing right, what kind of events you all like. And we hope to run the center with you guys in mind. So thank you.
Yeah, and opening it up, really. Robin, I see your mouth moving, but I don't see you. I don't hear you.
I'm muted because my dogs are barking. Sorry. So I don't know if this makes sense, but what came to me was that I want to be a kind person who helps others on their journey. I want to be accepting of what is, stay present. I want to share my gifts with others and help them find more happiness in their life. And that makes me very happy. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like what came to me, like when I think of my personal statement, and I try to live by that, and it does affect my actions each and every day, because if that's my philosophy, then I want to be that, I want to be that what I just said. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think so. I think that that is something, it's so beautiful, right? What you just wrote down, that statement, and you lit up when you were reading it, right? It kind of felt a little bit intimidating to say it out loud, right? But it's okay.
It's weird to say out loud because it's sort of like, yeah, but at the same time, it feels right and real to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is. Let me see
And I
this.
think also when we do write our personal statement and we are able to say it out loud, um, I also believe that people that know me would say, yes, that's what you do. You do that. That you live that. You are that. And so it feels like funny to say it because nobody wants to brag or say they're
Mhm.
good at it. But at the same time, it's like, oh, okay, it's okay. I own it. And when I go off track, it's like, whoa, pull back,
Absolutely. And what you said, right? Sharing it with others is also a good sounding board. So that would be like if we were to have like a more advanced workshop, we would have that as an exercise. Like you need other people to hear you say that and give you feedback, right? To probe with some questions. Does anybody else want to share? Whatever you came to, like it doesn't have to be perfect. I have here some.
I will.
Great.
Spoke, but yes, please go.
Um, my personal statement is I'm grounded and centered in my faith. I'm a spiritual being actively seeking union with divine intelligence. I am doing my inner work to embody a state of authenticity. My inner and outer worlds are in a peaceful state of alignment.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, and really bringing in that spirituality piece as a big component, right? As a kind of a central piece of how you show up.
Thank you.
Lovely, Shanti. Bells, even if you don't have a statement, like when today you might have, perhaps you're taking something away, right? A few things, a few thoughts.
Definitely. Does anybody have any questions for Maria before we wrap up? Questions, comments, anything?
Yeah, I would like to kind of get a little bit on these core values. It's so interesting. I actually never like seen them like that as far as like a 24 core values worksheet. And so for me, I'm a trauma specialist, EMDR, all polyvagal list. And I look at these as like post-traumatic growth as well with our clients or patients. Um, how do you see, maybe I'm just kind of more curious to like how you see like post-traumatic growth adaptive, because as a trauma, in my new philosophy, it's like grounded in spirituality, is zest for light, love, and this is so adaptive. And when trauma, I've always been so much in like the negative, maladaptive, and either pulled me there or pulled even my work with clients there. And you forget the brain almost needs its happiness. It needs the adaptive networking. How would you kind of thread in maybe like post-traumatic growth or trauma work with clients, and like this is so great because it's so positive. Like, how do you balance it / like how do you incorporate that maladaptive processes with like such a extreme adaptive format?
Yeah. So what comes to mind is everyone at their core have, when there's trauma present, right, there's this fear being triggered, right, all the time. And we understand that it has, right, its root. It had, it started at some point. But beyond that, that person had, other parts of their lives, right? If you will, a sense of wholeness, right? And trauma, what tends to do, it tends to dominate, right? It doesn't allow other parts of you to come in and have a discussion at the round table, right? So what I do when I see that trauma is really being triggered is I usually go into first some self-compassionate work and see what are the basic human needs that need to be met, but from like an auto-generated, right? From the self to the self, right? Because until we feel a little bit of safety, it's hard for us to open up to this conversation about, what do I value, right? That would be my first thought. And then usually once I get them in a place where their guard is down, is then that we might start to talk about, depending on the person, like what matters to you, or what has mattered to you throughout your life, right? So perhaps the value clarification with an individual might go very much more like one-on-one and not so broad, right? Because today I brought the 24 values, which are like cross-culturally accepted, but on a one-on-one, you can really, if you know the values, then you're able to see them in your client, and then you can bring them up as a probe. Like it seems that you're perhaps what symbolizes hope for you, right? As hope is something, but hope is a value that comes up when things are challenging, right? Because it requires you to have a little bit of an optimistic outlook. Needs to be future, thinking about the future being prosperous. So I usually, when I see trauma first, I take it into a safe place. And then when I feel we have that good connection, then I might kind of start to ask, what matters to you, or probe with these values and see how they come up in their life, or they came up in their previous life. I guess I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I'm
Nope. Great.
that one.
Thank you.
So, can I add something?
Yeah.
So I was just going to add that I think sometimes for our, like I have my students do the VIA strength survey, which is what you're using today. And if they do the VIA strength survey, then they get, even whoever you're speaking with, they get to see what their strengths are. And then they also get to see, well, how have I used them to be sitting here right now with you? Like I survived, I got through it. Yes, I still deal with the trauma, but wow, I have all these strengths that I've used to get here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
And it's a free survey. You can go online and do it. So
What is it called again? I'm sorry.
It's the VIA strength survey.
Yeah, we can put it in the chat.
I was thinking that based on what Robin said, that I think a great way to figure out your values, and this worked for me, was to start from my strengths.
Yeah.
Like, what am I good at and why?
Yeah.
And for me, like the list of like my very important values are things that I know that I'm good at. And I think the ones that weren't very important were like I said, I can't show up every day doing that. Like I'm not that great at them.
And there's a lot of strength blindness and values blindness, right? And I'll say that this was true to me, a few years back until I got into the world of positive psychology. Sometimes we don't know what we stand for because we just kind of gone through life, right? We were raised a certain way. We made some decisions. We got into a school. We decided, like, for some reason, we decided, and we're here, right? But we don't exactly know why we're here and like what our core values or strengths are. But when we start to have this self-reflection time and really be systematic about, spending time with yourself and discovering yourself, it all starts to clear up, and we can start to see, did I do this because it was an expectation, or did I do this because it was true to me? And can I now make that choice going forward, right? Because there is a lot of noise. Again, we live in a world right now where we're so influenced that, if we, I'm not to be judgmental or anything, but like if we're watching, Desperate Housewives all day, we might think that these behaviors are common to life, right? And then we kind of go into our life thinking that's the way, right? Because that's what we are currently exposing ourselves to. Rather, if it can happen, right? We need to start to be very much conscious that anything that we are exposed to is constantly trying to shape us. And once we are aware of this and we say, okay, these are my values. So for example, family is important to me, but it's not family in any way. It's family in the way that I start to define it, right? Perhaps it's my core, like my husband and my kids, and what does that mean to me to stay connected to them, right? It might not mean that I'll do every single tradition the same way I was taught. It means that there's something about that is true to me, but I need to define it myself. So this is, again, a journey of a lifetime or a privilege of a lifetime to become who we truly are. Let's go, yeah.
True. I never heard that. Privilege of a lifetime to become who we truly are.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That can be a quote from Maria.
Oh, no, it's not mine. It's definitely Cardian.
Is that a real quote? I love that. I've never
Oh,
heard
yeah, absolutely. It's
a
already a quote. Don't take it. I wish it were mine.
I do want to piggyback on its importance. And I think this is actually, now that we kind of just discussed a little bit more, the importance, and it's actually a little bit more critical of an importance of self-discovery, self-actualizing, because, there is a big pandemic of loneliness out there. I mean, you see the Harvard studies, you see all that, like that's huge.
Mhm.
And then even our field, I mean, when you look at intake, when you look at the DSM, we're diagnostic or we're labeling. So smack borderline personality disorder give someone, dissociative questionnaire, and we're just like going into the darkness rather than the enhancing the light. And I don't do this enough, honestly, with clients. I get them, doing EMDR, and we get all, and then of course we do adaptive, but it's a little bit more foo-foo in a way. Like, let's do a safe place, let's do a container. It's like, I don't mean foo-foo, but it's off hours right now. So just, what I mean? This is the real deal of just like, that's why it was important for me to apply myself too. I took this just as seriously as I would ideally want a client to, but I think it really speaks to the pandemic out there next, which is loneliness,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that this is, I think that now thankfully, we are seeing more people wanting to do this work, right? Because, I'm 41 years old, and, like when I was 20, perhaps going to the counselor, going to the therapist, like I didn't really know why I would go to that. Like I didn't have enough like knowledge, or there wasn't enough like consciousness on mental health at that point, like 20 years back. I think now the conversation is different. I think there's a lot of acceptance on, what mental health is. And sometimes we need to do, the dark work, like you say, right? Sometimes we need to actually help people, if you will, cure a disorder. But most people that are out there lonely actually need to do this work, which will take them from their, loneliness or emotional distress to a positive mental state, right? And that work is like, that's what like positive psychology like opened up this, Pandora box, because there's a lot of work to do. There's the important work to cure and treat, and then there's the important work to take people from just feeling languishing, lonely, and stuck to feeling flourishing and actually being able to thrive in their own life.
We want to take them from neutral to north of neutral, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a passion for me, so I could stay here and talk all day. But I'm happy to see that this is something that, is I really want to point across that for me, it was a journey and it continues to be a journey. So, for everyone here, please feel encouraged and not discouraged, right? By perhaps today, we just kind of discovered something and we just need to keep doing that work. Like Dr. Christina just said, like, we just need to keep doing that work for ourselves and then to be able to show up for others.
So thank you, everybody. We are, obviously we're out of time because my dog is telling me. Maria, thank you so much for being with us today and teaching us all something new, even me, who has studied positive psychology for a long time. And you gave us some tools that we can honor, so we can honor our compass and actually figure out who we truly are and make choices in alignment with those values. To everyone in the audience, thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. I hope you will join us again in the next academic year. You can register on our website, fau.edu/happiness. And while you're there, please remember to register for our next event, which is September 10th, Daily Delights, Helpful Tips to Add Joy to Each and Every Day. And I will be doing that workshop. So I hope you will all show up for that. And I hope you all have a great rest of your evening.